On the move. It was raining, it was skin like a verb, it was head like bone. Back home, it was July, it was written. Hard road, port of Spain, maybe Marseille. We walked along, up the mountain, heavy light, acrobatic, copper septic, heavy rain. I wasn't part of the Windrush generation, but I was part of that whole movement that leaves the Caribbean and goes to the UK thinking that there's going to be a better life and opportunities and stuff like that. So I was whole part of that diasporic tradition that does that. So I know firsthand what it's like to be an immigrant, which I think is a pretty ugly word, but you know, to be in someone else's country, and I know what that feels like. And you know, I think that experience is something that I bring to the project, and I bring to an understanding of how to shape a project like this, you know. The project is a celebration of the cultural impact that the Windrush generation has had on culture, on British culture from that period, from the 40s, the late 40s, looking at the sort of whole history of that contribution up to now. Pearl Connor, who was I guess she was an activist and a writer and a publicist at that time, from Trinidad, says this really interesting quote. She says that there's no history of us in Britain. Britain is like a hole that we fall into. I'm talking about Caribbean people, you know. So I thought that was interesting, this idea of we fall into a hole, and I thought, you know, it'd be necessary and important to celebrate some of the music and some of the people and the literature of that period and show how it transformed the UK. What was that? That was thunder, wind that blew us out of sync. It was odd, a kind of shrimp, Caribbean. It was peeled back to reveal it. It was London, it was midnight. We were sailing, we were moving, we kept on it. All things happen at the same time. I think one of the main correspondences between jazz and poetry is that both are acts of individuality. They're expressions of individual thought. In jazz, it's communal, but it's also individual. It's about soloing and individual expression. And I think poetry is the same. I think poetry is about the individual idea and the individual thought and feeling of the poet. So I think that's one connection. And I think the sense of improvisation that a poet experiences when they write, I mean, every line that you write is a line that's never been written before. And you're forging ahead and improvising and changing and making things fit musically. Because poetry is essentially a form of spoken music. And I think the jazz musician does the same. When a jazz musician solos, they're creating something every time, a line that hasn't been done before. And trying to create something new and original every time. Every word, every phrase. I think that's the connection.